Had a change of heart. I'm here to announce on this Friday, March 28th, on the sheet, I've had a change of heart. There's a caveat attached to it. Brian Burke's joining us here in a couple of moments. Brian's traveling, and he's in a really, really cool spot for an incredible event, and I'm not jealous at all that I'm not part of it. We'll get to Burkie here in a second. But Zach, I've had a change of heart. And it came after listening to Brendan Gallagher complain about goalie interference. I've had a complete change of heart, just so we have some context. And hello to everybody watching on YouTube. Hello to everybody in the chat, which is always fun and vibrant. Everybody listening, either on their favorite podcast platform or in the archives on YouTube. I have had a change of heart. Now, I tend to change my opinion quite often, but on this one, I've changed. Normally, I'm not a big fan when players rip officials, but I'm fine with it now because I thought of something today. And I checked with someone today who feels the same way. And this person's an official. And I want to share a couple of things with you. But I have a change of heart. But just so we have context for all of it. So the Philadelphia Flyers, congratulations. Bradshaw, interim head coach, wins their first game to beat the Montreal Canadiens, who are fighting for their playoff lives. That is a tough loss for Montreal. Brendan Gallagher comments afterwards about goalie interference. Let's hear from the Montreal Canadiens forward.
I mean, guys, we watch, we see what's going on. You know, the Palmieri goal, the goal we had called back, he skates in the crease on his own. He gets in Dober's way. That's what they've been calling. That's the standard. And then, you know, it seems to go against us every single time. It's incompetence. We need someone in there who can show consistency that the players are asking. I mean, I don't know who's making the decisions. Players are frustrated all over the league. It seems like there's zero consistency, and it needs to change. We got to get people in here who understand the game, and we're not getting that right now.
First of all, just so we're all on the same page, in the Situation Room, these people that don't know the game are Colin Campbell, Chris King, Kay Whitmore, Rod Pasma, and whichever official is in the Situation Room that night. Just so we're all on the same page. These people that don't know hockey. Here's the thing. I don't mind if a player wants to go out there and rip officials. You know why? Because I think that if we're going to allow that, we should also allow officials after the game to rip the performances of the players. Tell me, young Zach Phillips, you would not love to hear, pick an official, Wes McCauley, come out and comment on player X's performance. I don't want to single anybody out, but Joe Smith, you know what? Probably, got a little bit soft by the time the third period rolled around. Just imagine an official saying this after a game. First two periods had some energy, but got real soft, stayed away from the puck, wouldn't go into the corners, wouldn't engage in front of the net. Like, he's got no consistency to his game. I know his coach, and his coach just wants him to be more. Like, how much would you love to hear an official? Because it should be fair game, right? If the players can blast off on the officials, shouldn't the officials be allowed to blast off against the players after a game? Zach Phillips, what do you think about that idea? Now, before you answer, I did the responsible thing, and I texted someone about this, an official, and I said, would you be in favor of this? Free passes for players on ripping officials if the officials after a game could go out there and do the same. And here's one of the answers that I got. That would be hilarious. This is good. I've often fantasized about giving a press conference post-game and pointing out the number of giveaways and takeaways and possibly penalties like puck over the glass and too many men calls. Tell me you would love to hear an official come out there and blast players the way that players go out and blast officials. Quick thought on that one.
Yeah, I would. But I'm like someone who cheers for chaos. I enjoy the chaos. So I like that. I like that idea. I would think it would be hilarious if they had to go out there and then they're like, Brendan Gallagher just said this about the call that was made, and he's like, Brendan Gallagher should have. Brendan Gallagher should worry about scoring because he hasn't had one in 8.
Brendan Gallagher was facing an open net, and he could the net hasn't moved in 100 years. It's been in the same place. I don't know how he misses that net. Come on. Tell me that wouldn't be the funniest thing for you.
I like that. I like that. I think it would be funny. I did also think referees should have to answer stuff in the first place. So just being able to do this, I think it brings up the drama. Like, it allows you to have more storylines and more back and forths. It doesn't have to be like a battle between the two, but the guy can go back and forth and say, well, I don't know what he was watching. He wasn't paying attention because I saw this clearly, and he's not been seeing the game for the last month, so I don't think he should be worrying about what I'm doing. Like, I think that stuff would be fun. Also, by the way, Jeff, I just throw in quickly.
Sure.
I think it should have been goalie interference. So I think Gallagher had a right to be mad, but I do think the referees should be able to take shots back. I'm okay with that. I think it was goalie interference, though.
See what the chat thinks. I'm going to probably do something on this on the blog this week. We'll see where this goes. I'll get a sort of consensus around the various people that I talk to and see what I can come up with. In the meantime, here's what's coming up on the program today. Fridays are always fun. Daily outlines powered by FanDuel make every moment more with North America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook app provider. And coming up on the program today, since it is, after all, Friday, Zach, that means the one and only Brian Burke is aboard. Always love talking to Burke, and especially at a time of year like this. Trade deadline has come and gone. NCAA Division I tournament is ongoing. We're starting to see teams sign free agents, college free agents. We'll get Burkie's thoughts on that. We will talk about in the crease again. Here's the standard, folks. In the blue, that's on you. But just because you're in the blue doesn't mean it is goalie interference. You still have to actually interfere with the goaltender to qualify for goalie interference. We'll get on that one. How about your St. Louis Blues? How about your Robert Thomas again last night for the St. Louis Blues? How about Dylan Holloway with goal number 25 and 26 for the St. Louis Blues? They're just taking the ball and running away with a wild card spot. Like, they may get WC1 out of all of this. Never mind WC2. And the leaks in Edmonton continue after a tough loss at the hands of the Seattle Kraken. It's a good thing they've built up a nice, comfortable cushion for themselves. We'll get on that and have a thought on Lady Byng. Put it out on Twitter yesterday and got, the usual responses. But what Ovechkin did last night, bringing his team back to shake the hand and congratulate Marc-Andre Fleury. And, of course, we think about Ovechkin and all the battles between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals and how Ovechkin and Marc-Andre Fleury were front and center for a lot of them. Ovechkin got him a lot of times. Marc-Andre Fleury got Ovechkin a lot of times. It was a really nice moment that really did harken back to Jerome McGinley. I've told the story countless times. In Trevor Linden's last game in the NHL, Jerome McGinley getting the entire team to go and shake Trevor Linden's hand, not just for his career, but I would imagine as well for his services as, I guess would have been the last presidents of the National Hockey League Players Association. I kind of threw out there, like, that to me impresses me a lot more for the Lady Byng trophy than, this guy's got a lot of points and he's only got 5 penalty minutes on the season. That impressed me a lot more. Anyhow, we'll get into this and plenty more with our Friday staple. We missed him last week because of scheduling, but he returns, and he's in one of my favorite places in all of Canada. He's the one and only Brian Burke. My sister lives on the island. Burkie, tell us where you are and why.
In Victoria. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. I got my ring on.
Oh, look at that, the quack.
We're here for the centennial of the Victoria Cougar Stanley Cup in 1925. So I was asked to come over and be part of the ceremony.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful.
It is interesting. I had Chris Patrick on the show not too long ago, general manager for the Washington Capitals, and we all think of the Patrick family like, as far as visionary families go in the NHL, I always put the Patricks right up at the top. There are still some things that they created in the old Pacific League that we enjoy to this day. I mean, even something as simple as numbers on the back, changing on the fly, like forward passing in all 3 zones. Like these, it's one of the first, maybe the first family when it comes to hockey. And I would imagine as we celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the Victoria Cougars, where you are right now, the Patrick family name has come up more than once or twice.
Oh, yeah. It's the first family of hockey. It's a family. The Patricks were royalty. Craig Patrick, Dick Patrick, Lester Patrick, his brother. First artificial ice rink in Canada was built here, right across the street from where the memorial is here. wonderful innovation, great bloodlines, great group of people. I'm proud to say I know the Patrick family.
It's one of my favorite places in all of Canada. It's a gem. If you haven't been, I encourage everybody to visit Victoria. My sister lives in Duncan. I try to get there as often as I can. Great junior hockey with the Royals there as well. And the other thing, I know rugby is near and dear to your heart. Is that not where the headquarters of Rugby Canada is? Is it not in Victoria?
Yeah, well, Langford, just outside Victoria,
Okay.
Langford, BC. That's where the rugby center of the board is based here. The training facility is based here. It is a rugby capital of BC and of Canada.
Perfect. We'll talk a little bit more about the 100-year anniversary of the Cougars here in a couple of seconds. But before we get to questions, before we get to things like college free agent stories, and I seem to recall you have a good one about Danny DeKeyser. We'll get into that in a couple of seconds. What did you make of the Philadelphia situation this week? John Torella fired as head coach. Bradshaw takes over on an interim capacity. A lot of this revolving around Cam York, who in the game against Toronto was pretty much benched for the entire game. Didn't play at times, didn't even have a stick on the bench. There was some type of, as we've seen reported, some type of incident where the quote was both sides went too far with one another. But here we are, John Tortorella out now as the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. How did you read this one, Burkie?
Well, first off, a coaching firing is a failure on all fronts. It means your players let you down. It means the coaches didn't get the job done. It means the GM failed. It's a systemic failure that affects every part of the organization. And I thought Torts would get through the end of the year, and then they'd make a change if they were going to. But the fact they did it so suddenly indicates either I don't think the interview that Torts gave that's been widely criticized was the factor. Danny Briere said a number of factors led up to this, a number of incidents. So I think it was cumulative. Torts is a great guy, great friend of mine, a great coach, but everyone has a shelf life. Maybe it was just time.
It's interesting. I was making this point to someone the other day. I know you're a fan of boxing and MMA, and whenever there's a fighter who wants to quit but doesn't say he wants to quit, there's sort of a code for it. That in between rounds, when the fighter is sitting in his corner, the doctor will come over and say something along the lines of, "Are you okay to continue?" And if the fighter wants to quit without saying that he wants to quit, he'll say, "Yeah, I'm fine to continue. I just can't see right now." And when a doctor hears, "I can't see right now," the fight's over. Like, there's no way a doctor's going to let the fighter out of the corner if the fighter's saying, "Yeah, I'll be fine. I just can't see right now." There's no way in the fight. But that's code for a fighter saying, "I quit," without saying, "I quit." A lot of people looked at that post game after the Maple Leafs game, and I wonder if it's just John trying to deflect away from the performance of his team. You've talked about diving in front of the media before for your players, but there's some people that look at that and say, was that John's way of saying, if I say something like I'm not interested in coaching in a team situation like this, I'm paraphrasing, is that John's way of quitting or wanting to quit without saying I quit?
I don't think John Tortorella understands the word quit. I don't think it's in his vocabulary. I don't think it was trying to quit. I don't think it was anything other than some heart-wrenching honesty saying, "I'm not sure about this." And I think people have taken it way too far as to what he actually said. Mm-hmm. But I think it was a series of events. Like what Danny Briere said, it wasn't this one thing. It wasn't just what Tort said. It was a series of things.
When you look at the Philadelphia Flyers, like I wonder about, like, this team is going to have a lot of kids on it soon. I know that right away everybody was drawing a straight line between Rick Tocchet and the bench in Philadelphia. I have no indication that Rick Tocchet's not going to be back behind the bench for the Vancouver Canucks. That's a whole other issue, but I'm pretty sure that Rick Tocchet's not interested in that conversation right now as he's trying to get the Vancouver Canucks into the playoffs. I wonder about, and Western Michigan is still playing, but I wonder about, Pat Ferschweiler, who has been an assistant before in Detroit. Him and Keith Jones played together at Western Michigan, really good with kids. Like, if you're picking the next head coach, I don't need a name, Burkie, but like, what kind of coach is going to be right for this team? Who's a team that's going to have a lot of young kids on it for a while here now?
Well, I think you need a teaching coach, but I think that could be one of the assistants, like you mentioned, like Pat Birchweiler. You have to have a coaching staff, not just a head coach. So you want a coach to handle a D, a coach to handle forwards, special teams. You put the team together with different skills. And I think they need a guy who can handle young players, including the head coach in this case. But it's they've got some really good pieces coming here. I think it's only a matter of time before Philly's a powerhouse again. I just felt badly for Torts. He's a good man.
Do you think, I mean, maybe so much of this is just up to him if he wants to. I always have a hard time believing that people that have been in sports, for the purposes of this conversation, hockey, that have been in hockey for so long, that they never lose the juice of wanting to compete and caring about a game, not just your game, but other games, because other games affect your team and your game. Like I have a hard time, but I've said this to you before, like when you went to Pittsburgh and left us at the old shop. I don't think that Torts just stops caring. I think like John Torella, if he wants another job, I'm sure there'll be a team out there that'll say, you know what, we need a team that needs a kick in the pants here. Let's have the conversation about John Torella.
I think you're right. I think there's too many, especially if they expand. There's 2 more jobs. Yeah. You're looking at, you can't tell me that John Tortorella, his skill set is not in need, it's not in demand, that he's not going to have a seat at the table if someone wants to hire him. The question is, does he want to go somewhere? I think he'd be very particular this time. I don't think he's lost any fire. He'd want to go somewhere this time where he has a legitimate chance to win, not like Philly.
You ever try to hire him?
No, but I worked with him at the World Cup. I worked with him at the Olympics. I worked with him at World Championships one year. I spent a lot of time with him. I really admire him.
I admire him too. As we all know, he has a son that serves and serves like, white of their eyes, like really close to it. And I know that what kind of stress that can put on a family. I know all the work he's done around dogs, which is something that's very near and dear to my heart as well. Do you have a quick thought on not John Tortorella, the coach, but John Tortorella, the person?
We were getting ready for the World Cup. We were in Colorado. Mr. Anschutz, the owner of the Kings, and Dean Lombardi would ask him, Mr. Anschutz, if we could use his ranch. So we, Paul Holmgren, Dean Lombardi, me, Torts, spent 4 days looking at film, evaluating players, talking about players. And we had veal one night, and Torts had veal. He's going to be mad I told you the story, but I said to him, you're having veal. You know how they raise veal, what they do to the animals? And he said, no. He's Italian. They eat a lot of veal. And I said, I told him, I sent him a picture, like a Google article about veal and how it's raised. And he's never touched it since.
Thanks to you and your education model of this is what showed up on your plate and how it got there.
Yep. But I bet you, remember, Torts is very popular with the media too. Someone's going to call him right away and ask him to do a guest gig.
Oh yeah,
in the playoffs right away.
Yeah. He's it's always interesting because there are some people, obviously you enjoy it and you've always done it. Paul Maurice has, in between jobs, has always tried to jump on panels as well. John's interesting because I think John has, not that it's like an us or them mentality, but it sort of is. Like there are people in hockey and then there are the media, and there's only so far that he's really comfortable. There's only so long that he's comfortable doing media. Like his real juice is being in the game and caring about wins and losses. I don't know if I'm setting this up properly, but do you know what I'm kind of getting at, Burkie?
Yeah, I do. I think his value as an analyst is the fact that he sees it black and white and will not have any other discussion of anything but black or white. Yeah. And so if another analyst says, well, I thought they're doing this well, he'd say, no, you're not watching. He doesn't tolerate any dissent. He watches a game. He has great opinions. He's strong and firm on them. He's a great analyst. I think he's terrific.
What do you think's next for the Philadelphia Flyers? We've talked so much about Philly and Torts here. We'll move on. But what do you think's next for the Philadelphia Flyers? I mean, it's a lot of kids. I think it's safe to say at least one more year of pain there for Philadelphia. But how do you see Philly right now?
Well, it's going to be one more year plus of pain, but I also think they've got a lot of cap space, I think, and they got a bunch of prospects. They should be able to package something together to get better a little quicker, but I think they should stay with the rebuild the way they're doing it. Do it with kids, do it with picks. Mm-hmm. I think the fan base will be patient for another year or two. But after that, they're going to start. This is why I keep harping about expansion. You have to get your team better. And it's 1 out of 32. 1 year out of 32, you get to have a parade if you follow the odds. Make that 1 out of 36. And then the patience level, these new owners especially, goes right straight down to hell. So, no, I think that stay with the plan, I would say, if ownership can stomach it. But they're going to have more pain. It's going to be ugly for a while.
Do you have a thought, just shifting gears here? The St. Louis Blues have won 8 games in a row. Robert Thomas has been fantastic. Dylan Holloway with a pair last night, 25 and 26. Going back to November 24th, he has 54 points in 52 games. Like, it's such a great season for Dylan Holloway. Philip Broberg has been great. They're 15-2-2 in their last 19 games. Like, I feel bad for Calgary. I feel bad for Vancouver. But what a story, St. Louis. And they're doing it all without Colton Parayko. Like, do you have a thought on the Blues, Doug Armstrong's team here?
Yeah, I said this morning. I think it's really important that people notice. They say the two offer sheets. One was a safe offer sheet. Dylan Holloway, everyone knew what he was as a player. He's having a great year, but everyone knew he was a good player. The other guy was a part-time defenseman until they made that offer sheet on him. Up until then, he didn't see regular duty, didn't play the power play, didn't kill penalties, didn't even dress every night. That was the gamble. That's where your GM Spurs come in. That's where Doug Armstrong can take a bow and say, we went out and got this guy when no one else was willing to pay the price. And Edmonton said, he's not ready. We're not going to match. That to me is GMing. When you move up in the draft, when you take a chance, when you step out and are right about something that's a huge gamble, that's that's what sets GMs aside and makes them great. And that's what Doug Armstrong is.
You know what's interesting about that too, Burkie, is Philip Broberg wanted to do this very much. Dylan Holloway, as I understand it, was reluctant at first. Not that he had to be talked into it, but initially he was reluctant. And this has been a bonanza for him. Here's my question, because you understand the dynamic of the Battle of Alberta. So there were 2 other teams that were prepared to do the same offer sheet. Calgary was one of them. If it was Calgary that submitted that offer sheet for those 2 players, what would that have done for the Oilers? Do you think it would have been the same outcome? Or because it was the Battle of Alberta, would Stan Bowman have moved heaven and earth to match that?
It would have changed the whole dynamic. There's no question that who the offer sheet comes from affects whether you match or not. I think they would have matched on at least the kid, the forward, not Broberg. Mm-hmm. I think they would have matched on Holloway if it had been Calgary. So, yeah, I think it changed the dynamic completely. People say that no one reads press clippings, no one minds stuff, and they don't generally. But in division, yes, it would be a difference maker.
I could only have imagined what that would have been like if it would have been the Calgary Flames. I know that things are different now. This isn't the 80s and then the nature of the Battle of Alberta. And there was that era where every Edmonton Calgary game took 3.5, 4 hours. Every Quebec Nordiques Montreal Canadiens game took 3.5, 4 hours. Every Islanders Rangers game was the same way as well. But there's still a lot of there, Burkie.
I was in Alberta for about an hour before I started to hate the Oilers. About 1 hour. I realized how deep the feelings were. I love Edmonton now. I have a radio show there with Bob Stauffer. Yeah. I really enjoy it. I like their team, but it took about 1 hour to figure out it's like going to Toronto. I hated Montreal within an hour after I signed with Toronto. I knew how bad it was. But once I'd been there about an hour, people come up to me and say, we don't care if you lose every game all year as long as you beat Montreal. Same thing in Alberta. So it's a very healthy rivalry. It's very good for the game. It's fun, but it's very real. It would have affected the outcome on the offer sheet, I believe.
Is there one team I remember asking Brad May this. Like, is there one team that you regretted throughout your career you never had a chance to play for, or it just didn't work out? And he said the Boston Bruins. And Mayday looks like a Bruin, and you know Mayday better than everybody, Burkie. I mean, he would fit into that uniform. Was there one team that you look at and you say, man, I really wish I would have got a hold of this team, or I really got a gig there?
Yeah, growing up in Minnesota, I was hopeful that I'd get a chance to work in Minnesota before I got done. I never got that chance, which I regret. I had three things I wanted to do when I got into the business. One was win a Stanley Cup, one was work in original 6 team, and one was build an expansion team. I never got a chance to do the expansion team. I never got a chance to work for Minnesota. So those would be regrets. Boston would have been nice, but I feel very fortunate to work for all the places I work. So I don't lament the things, but wistfully speaking over a cold beer, would I have liked to work in Minnesota? Yeah, I grew up there. I love living there. Spent all my summers there when I was playing college hockey. So, yeah, I would have liked to work there.
Why an expansion team?
I think an expansion team is the biggest challenge you can face. You start from the ground up. Back when I first got in the business, they didn't give expansion teams any players.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Protected list, when Minnesota came in, I think the protected list was 18-6, 12-6-2. The protected 12, I think it was, literally. 12 forward, 60, two goalies. So you got nothing to start with. So build a team and get competitive with an expansion team is a special challenge. Would have been fun to build one from the ground up. Again, I never got that opportunity.
Bouncing around before I ask you about a college free agent story, Brad Marchand makes his debut tonight for the Florida Panthers. You know, we've seen some. I remember for the first time we saw Mike Modano in a Wings jersey. It was jarring. There've been a lot of players that have gone on to different teams, and it takes for a while for you to adjust your eyes. And this one's going to be different. Like, this one's going to be, wow, Brad Marchand is playing with the Florida Panthers. Like, we've seen pictures of him at practice. We're showing one right now, him with Roberto Luongo. Luongo's pads are great. It's half Panthers, half Canucks, and he does have the captain's C on the pads, which is a really nice touch, I think, there for Luongo. But, like, do you have a quick thought on either players that showed up in different uniforms that that jarred your vision, or just a thought on Brad Marchand here playing with the Florida Panthers, as if they weren't miserable enough to play against now, Burkie?
Yeah, I think the key here is not just the longevity that Brad Marchand had with the Bruins and the quality of his play. Like, he was a great player, a great competitor, but he was a nasty guy too. He was a mean little son of a bitch.
Yeah,
and I think people will never forget that. So it's really hard to look at him and not see a Boston uniform on. Remember the first time I saw Matt Sundin in a sweater that wasn't Toronto? I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. He had played for Quebec before.
Yeah.
He had played elsewhere afterwards, but even so, Matt Sundin was elite. And I saw him with that other sweater on. I was like, no, it can't be stopped. I'm going to feel the same way looking at Marshy tonight.
Looking forward to it. That is the Florida Panthers facing off against Utah. Okay, so it is college free agent signing season. You know, I still maintain that one of the best college signings was Tyler Bozak. I remember talking to Colby Armstrong about Bozak, and Colby would say, like, he makes, like, it's so easy to play hockey with Tyler Bozak, because he just does all the stuff that you hate doing to make the game simple. Great on the board, smart, responsible, like all of it. Like, a really, really great. He said, the game is so easy when you play with Tyler Bozak. But as I can recall, you had an interesting almost event with Danny DeKeyser, who ended up going to the Detroit Red Wings. What do you remember from that courting of Danny DeKeyser?
Well, I always went after the parents. I never met Tyler Bozak till the day we signed him. I went to Regina and met with his folks twice. I felt the best way to get a player to come was to meet with the parents. So I met with DeKeyser's mom and dad. His dad is a Vietnam vet, wonderful guy. His mom is really in charge of things, and she was very adamant that we follow all the rules about the NCAA. Like, I couldn't buy their dinner. I couldn't pay for dinner. So I met with them twice. They came to a Marlies game. They drove down and went to a Leafs game. We didn't contribute anything toward it because you can't. But they went to a Leafs game. They went to a Marlies game. I still believe, even though Danny DeKeyser, I'm sure will tell you, no, it's not true. I think we had him. And then I got fired. I remember turning to Dave Nonis after I got fired, and he said to me, "Where do you think that leaves us with Danny DeKaiser?" I said, "You're dead without me. It's over." But I really think we could have had him and would have had him. Yeah. And I think he would have been a great Toronto Maple Leaf.
When you think of college free agents, and at least I do from my vintage, I think of the Calgary Flames in the 1980s. And the Calgary Flames couldn't wait for draft picks to develop to be competitive against the Edmonton Oilers. And Calgary, and this is, Badger Bob Johnson, the Calgary Flames loaded this team with as many college free agents as possible, like guys that could play, men, not like 19, 20-year-old kids. Like they filled it with men. You were working then. Would you have been an agent? I think maybe at that time. What do you remember from that? Because that really was, it wasn't the first time that it happened, but I mean, that was like the Calgary Flames were going out and grabbing as many U.S. college free agents as possible. What do you recall from that time?
Well, he was a draft pick, but I represented Brett Hall when he signed with Calgary.
Right.
So that was my first real brush with a top young player like that. But the one before was Joel Otto. I represented Joel Otto. Joel Otto agreed to a contract with Craig Patrick, who's an honorable guy. The Rangers were going to give him a 2+1, $35,000 to sign. And Cliff Fletcher said, "Look, I've got another offer." Cliff said, "I'll give you a 1-year deal, 10 to sign, 1+1, $10,000 to sign. And if he doesn't come back at the end of the year, we walk away." So I said, Craig Patrick called me back and said, "I want to withdraw my offer." I said, "Craig, I haven't even talked to Joel yet. You owe me that courtesy to give me the overnight." And Craig is an honorable guy. He said, "Okay, you're right." So I called Joel, and he said, "I guess I'm going to the Rangers." I said, "No, you're not. They don't want you. You're going to take the 10,000 and go." But I made Cliff put in a deal that if they re-signed Joel Otto, instead of getting 35, he got 55. So they signed him for a 1-year deal, took a chance on him. He played, 15 years there. He was a great player, part of their cup run. Great kid, great guy. So, yeah, free agency, most of them don't work out. They're not worth the money that's spent on them, but it's a free player if you're right. So it doesn't cost you anything to sign him except cash. You don't give up picks. Yeah, it's really smart to try and sign as many as you can.
The one thing, just circling back to Joel Otto, whenever I hear that name, Burkie, I always think of one thing: face-offs against Mark Messier. The Joel Otto, Mark Messier face-off wars were some of the best things. I mean, listen, the brawls and all that, and the great games and overtimes and all that. But like the game within a game, watching Otto go head-to-head at the dot with Mark Messier was outstanding for so many.
Yeah, one's a right shot, one's a left shot. They had to go head-to-head. Both big guys, both could overpower you on the move. Both could win a quick move and win with finesse, but also could overpower you. It would get both of them would get way down too. It would be like a bullfight. It was awesome.
Burkie, let me ask you about something we saw last night with Alex Ovechkin. Now, the Washington Capitals were playing the Minnesota Wild. It's a win for Minnesota. And at the end of the game, we've seen this before. Ginla did this with Trevor Linden, I was mentioning before he came on. So this is nothing new necessarily, but it's always a cool visual where Alex Ovechkin calls everybody back, all his teammates, to line up at center ice to shake the hand of Marc-Andre Fleury. Now, the way the Lady Byng Trophy is voted on these days is whoever marries the highest point total with the lowest penalty minute total tends to get the Lady Byng Trophy. But when you think about things like most gentlemanly player, like the definition of what the Lady Byng Trophy is, like to me, this is it. Like when we're looking at the Lady Byng, like what's more gentlemanly and respectful than Ovechkin calling back his entire team to shake the hand of Marc-Andre Fleury?
I would roll over and it would shame me so much if Alex Ovechkin, the way he's played the game, gets a Lady Byng because he does a good salute for Marc-Andre Fleury. I would be embarrassed. Look, I agree with it. It's great sportsmanship. Great gesture by Alex Ovechkin. He's a wonderful guy. Did the right thing. I can't believe his teammates didn't know that in advance.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury's potential last game. Someone should have noticed it before the half of them went down the runway. But for Ovi to call him back, great stuff. But does that change the value on a Lady Byng? No.
Okay, how about this then? Let me flip it around. Okay, if we're not going to say Ovechkin, this is my other big stump. I'm glad that this happened last night. There is nothing Burke, you're gonna hate me because I love shit like this, and I know that it just burns you whenever I bother you with stuff like this. But here I go.
Goalie when the Lady Byng were a defenseman.
Goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, as a salute for the career. Lady Byng Trophy, one of the great gentlemen, one of the great personalities of the game. It would be a first in the NHL. Marc-Andre Fleury for Lady. Nothing in the definition of the trophy that says it can't be a goaltender, and a goalie's never won it. How about giving Flower the Lady Byng, Burkie?
Another really bad idea, Jeff. Really bad.
I have a few of them, Burkie.
You can't give an award, a positional player.
Yeah.
You can't give a goaltender an award for sportsmanship. I'm sorry, they don't play enough. It's not an example you can give enough. And because he was a gentlemanly guy, he's a great guy. I love the guy. Yeah. I admire him very much. But no, the Lady Byng. And I used to not respect that award at all. I used to give a bonus for Lady Byng. The only bonus I gave players, it's in the Sedin twins' first contract. I gave this much, but except for the Lady Byng. So $35,000 for first team All-Star, any major award except Lady Byng. I didn't want any of my players to win it. Now, Yuri Hoodler won it for me in Calgary, and I changed my thinking about that. The league made me stop doing that, putting an award for anything but the Lady Byng, because it is a major award, and I was wrong on that. I should have done it. But when Yuri Hoodler won it, I said to Yuri, I'm very proud of you, Yuri. It's a major award. It's a legitimate major award, but not for a goalie, not for me.
That is one of the most Burkie stories I've ever heard, that you gave out bonuses for every trophy except for the Lady Byng.
That's true.
Do you know any other managers that did that, or is that a Burkie special?
No, that's like the Christmas freeze.
That's yours, yeah. The 2 weeks before the Christmas deadline, the Christmas trade freeze. Well, I love it. Before I wrap up with you, you got a busy time right now in Victoria where you're at. Right now to me the scariest looking team. I know we've talked a lot about the St. Louis Blues and how great they look and how well they've played. Man, for a third place team, if I'm anyone else in the NHL, I'm terrified of Colorado. I'm absolutely frightened to play the Colorado Avalanche, and they're third in their division. Do you have a thought on McKinnon's team right now?
Well, they're third in their division because they stumbled out of the gate and had to redo the goaltending and everything else. So the GM there, Chris McFarland's done an amazing job with that team. And yes, if they played at the same winning percentage pace all year that they're playing now, they'd be in first place. I went and looked at it the other day. So their poor start contributed to that. But they are scary. A lot of scary teams right now. You mentioned St. Louis. The only thing I worry about St. Louis is peaking in March usually doesn't help you peak in April.
That's true. But I think in a lot of ways, the St. Louis Blues are looking at this and saying, I know Armstrong made the big offer sheet move in the offseason, but I don't know that they thought that they were going to go on this run and make it into the postseason. Like, I think you're looking at their division and you're saying, like, Winnipeg is Winnipeg, and we got killers in Dallas, and we got killers in Colorado. Sure, that the Chicago Blackhawks going to have another season of pain, but I don't know that St. Louis looked at it, and Minnesota's always around it. I don't know that St. Louis looked at this, honestly, Burkie, and said, yeah, we got a shot at getting in here.
I agree. And I think the difference is, of all those teams, they're the ugliest team. They play big, ugly hockey. They're big boys hockey, long pants hockey, whatever phrase you want to use. Yeah. That's a team that plays a man's game, and it's going to be a problem for wherever they play. So I like St. Louis. I'm just saying, I get nervous when teams win 8 in a row this time of year.
Someone better tell Jim Montgomery to start losing then, because Monty's. I know we're all giving the Jack Adams to Carberry, but like, look what Jim Montgomery's done here.
Amazing.
It's like, again, I was saying this the other day on the show, Burkie. I don't know that Montgomery focuses at all on what's happened with the Boston Bruins, but I think that we're all human. It's impossible not to look at the old team that fired you and look at where you're at with your team right now and say, I can't wait to wake up in the morning. Like, I was a coach, like, which coach can't wait to get to the rink? Which coach can't wait to wake up right now? It's Jim Montgomery. And part of it is because his Blues are rolling and the Boston Bruins are looking like they just want to get to the finish line here and end the season.
Yeah, I think Spencer Carberry, everyone's saying he's got the vote. To me, it should always be talked about with a small group of people. I think Travis Green deserves some credit for where they are.
Yeah.
I think Jim Hiller deserves a great amount of credit. They
Good
labor
one.
in obscurity on the West Coast, but those guys have done good jobs too. But if I were voting, I don't have a vote. If I did, I'd vote for Spencer Carberry. He's done a great job right from the get-go with that team.
Sure has. Okay, last thing. Sidney Crosby breaks Wayne Gretzky's record, 20th season averaging a point per game. I know we're all focused on the OV chase, 6 goals away from Gretzky and all that, but there's Sidney Crosby busting a Gretzky record, 20th season point per game, to which Brian Burke says what?
Well, the lockout year to be 21. He'll get 21 next year. I think it's a record. I said this morning. I think it's a record that may never be broken, other than Sid breaking his own record in a year. I don't think players that make $14 million are going to play 20 years at a high level anymore. I think you're going to see guys do 15 years if they're fortunate to stay healthy. But I think this is a record that might stand for a long time. I hope it does.
Remarkable player. Lucky to watch him. Burkie, enjoy Victoria. What's on the schedule for today? What do you got going? I'm not jealous at all, by the way, Brian, and you know my love of hockey history, but I'm not jealous at all that you're there and I'm here. But what do you got on the schedule?
Well, they unveiled the monument this morning. We all went to that. They unveiled the monument marking the Stanley Cup championship in 1925. Contrary to many people who are watching, I was not there when they won the cup.
Didn't you drop the puck? You dropped the ceremony. Didn't you drop the puck on that one?
But I am a big fan of the Patrick family. I love Victoria, so it's great. We're going to do a hot stove tonight to raise some more money. Nice. And then we'll do a gala tomorrow night and a hot stove on Sunday, and then we get out of here.
I love it.
So I love coming here.
It's
love
beautiful.
Victoria.
Victoria, one of my favorite places in the entire country. Say hi to my sister if you bump into her. Thanks, Burkie. You be well, pal.
Thank you.
There he is, Brian Burke in lovely Victoria. Zach, you ever been to Victoria?
No, I haven't. I've never
awesome.
been. I've been to one place in Canada. Let me figure out how to word this. In Canada, outside of Ontario, and that would be Calgary, and I've been there twice.
Hang on. You've never been outside of Ontario, outside of Calgary twice?
Yeah. No Montreal, no Quebec, no BC, nothing.
What's the old saying? There's Toronto, then there's Canada.
I've never been out there.
Get out, man! Like there's a beautiful place. And so many of them are in BC. Oh yeah. Man, we got to get you on the road. Hang on, you've never been to Quebec?
Nope.
This is like waking up and finding out like that like your neighbor is Spider-Man. Like what the hell? You've never been. Seriously.
Yeah, I'm dead serious, yeah.
Hang on, but you've played hockey at a high level. You've never had like a Montreal tournament, Chateauguay, Quebec City, none of it?
No, I'm pretty sure I was supposed to play in the Quebec Pee Wee, and then something happened and we didn't end up playing in it. And then then, that was it. No, we had a pretty good team. Trying to think of anything else that would have ever come up. No, no other tournaments. The reason actually I ended up going to Calgary the first time was I played in the Max tournament. You know the Max
really? Yeah.
Yeah. So like I played in that. That was the first time I ever went to Calgary, and then the second time was last summer, and I went there for Stampede. And that's it. Otherwise, it was all U.S. travel and U.S. games and tournaments and all that.
Alex Rubman, sorry. Man, I've been to Quebec twice, and I'm a goddamn Texan. Make Philip Emery, make Philly spend a month in Flin Flon. Manitoba's great. Big Willie Styles. My buddy
played there.
In Flin Flon?
Yep, for the Bombers.
Yeah. That's legendary. Holy smokes.
Yeah,
Ryan DeSilva, our buddy, embarrassing Philly. He played there.
I know, it's tough. I know. I haven't
played for
been anywhere.
Brienne.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to finish the show knowing you barely even dipped your beak in the fountain that is in Canada. That is Canada here. You got to go to BC. You got to go Saskatchewan. You got to get to.
There's no excuse for it. I know.
Next year for pond hockey, we're taking you to Jasper.
Okay.
I don't like to do the pull rank thing, but I'm taking you to Jasper. I'm like, I'll go if I can bring Philly, because Philly's like really poorly traveled. You're coming to Jasper.
Sounds
We're
good.
going up.
I'm good.
4 hours north of Edmonton.
Hey, that works for me.
It's awesome.
That looked beautiful out there that you guys are doing.
You will love
all
it.
this
I
work that
love
you guys are a part of. So
I've been to Banff a few times, and no offense, Banff, man, Jasper's just gorgeous. I'll take Jasper all day long. And then Quebec, you never been to Montreal, Saturday night, Montreal Canadiens, 7:01, Coldplay, Ghost of the Forum, no?
I don't even know how to begin to tell you how jealous I was of the guys that were going for the Four Nations coverage. Like, doing all that stuff, being there in Montreal, and then going to Boston and doing that, I was, yeah. I mean, that looked like the peak of hockey and visiting those cities and everything. And I was like, oh, man, would have been cool. Yeah.
Montreal's
Tyler
so
telling
good.
us the stories, walking around. I'm like, oh, no, this doesn't sound like fun at all.
One of my favorite stories I can only imagine. Like when I did a hockey night in Canada, I did rinkside. One of my first ringsides was, I can't remember the two teams were, I was waiting in the hallway for an interview with Andrei Markov. And Madame and Monsieur Bellevaux at the intermission would always stand up and leave and go out to the concessions and have a refreshment and then go back. And so I was standing beside the Habs room, and Mr. Bellevaux was walking in front of me. And I don't know if you know this, but like, I got this thing about Jean Bellevaux. Like, he is my favorite ever. Like, everything about Jean Bellevaux I just adore. Who, by the way, as much as he was the gentleman, like early in his career, oh God, was he a prick to play against, and so tough and so dirty, like all of it. I just loved Bellevaux. Anyway, and I remember, like, I'm sitting there waiting for Markov, and Mr. Bellevaux was approaching me, and he walks past us, nodded my head, said, Mr. Bellevaux. I might have been like, Monsieur Bellevaux, and he says, Salut, Jeff. And I went, oh. That was my, like, I don't get like starstruck by like you know me by now, I feel like I don't get starstruck by any of it. At that moment, I'm like, how the fuck does Jean Bellevaux know my name?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Salut, Jeff. Oh, I never forgot it. Never forgot. But you got to have like those moments. Like, I remember Colby told me when he played with the Montreal Canadiens, after practice one day, he's just walking back to his hotel, and there's like a little restaurant, deli, and Jean Bellevaux is having a coffee with a bunch of people and a bagel or whatever, having some breakfast, and Colby's walking by, and Bellevaux like summons him inside, and like he sat and had breakfast with Jean Bellevaux, and he called his dad like right away. I'm like, the best thing in the world ever. Like, stuff like that happens in Montreal, man. You got to go to Montreal.
Yeah. I do.
All right, we got to get you traveling. You've been to Nashville though. That's
that was
good.
first time. Yep.
Been to Nashville, but you haven't been to Montreal.
No.
Turn in your cards, sir.
Schwa says this is going to trouble Jeff all weekend.
This is really going to bother me. The thing is, like, I'm not a big nationalistic guy either. I just think the parts of this country are absolutely gorgeous with wonderful people. Jeff and Zach take a sheet road trip. I'm down, J-Rock. Let's go. I'm into that. Big Willie Styles been to BC twice, Ontario twice, Alberta twice, more than Zach.
It's just true. There's no denying that. Let me ask you this. This is kind of different, but on the thought of it, you did get to travel up for work and go to all these different places. Yeah. What was or is, if it never happened and you didn't do it, your ideal Stanley Cup matchup? I'm not talking about competition and the teams and the players. I'm talking about cities that you can go to and experience for you personally. Like, what's the ideal back and forth?
Montreal is definitely one. So that wipes out everybody else in the Eastern Conference. That is the best, period. Especially for a guy like me, like, read too much history and interested in too much hockey history. Montreal is number one. Not even close. That's an easy one. In the West, man, I love Chicago. I really, really love Chicago. Chicago would be great. I like Dallas. A little humid, but I like Dallas. Los Angeles is really cool. No, it would be Chicago. It would be Montreal, Chicago. That would be it. And don't refer to it as an original six matchup. It's a solvent six matchup, or arbitrary six matchup. Yeah, it would be Montreal, Chicago. Yeah, Montreal, Chicago, probably.
Six arenas.
Yeah. What would yours be?
I can't tell you from experience. I've not been to these.
No,
places.
but like pretend like listen, like
just saying where.
Like, okay, you're having these are like immigrant hockey fantasies. You're dreaming about these magical places where the streets are paved with gold.
Yeah, I think having a Nashville involved. I would have said that even before I had gone there, and this is not recency bias.
Nashville's
like
awesome.
Nashville to me just seems
Nashville's
like
great.
unbelievable.
Nashville's
Going
tremendous.
was like, yeah, this place is sick.
Yeah.
Nashville and then East. I can't really disagree with Montreal. I'm just talking cities here. I would probably say Boston.
Boston's cool.
East.
Boston got a cool vibe.
East. I've never been, so I'm gonna ruin your weekend here completely.
No,
yeah,
I'm
also
just like
never
I
been.
gotta take you on the road, man. We gotta go. Like everywhere I gotta go. Like that's it. No, I gotta bring Philly. No, Philly's gotta come. Philly's gotta come. We gotta bring Philly.
I'm not gonna say no.
We got it. We got to get you traveling.
Boston.
Okay. What's that? Yeah, Boston's
Boston,
awesome.
yeah.
So you've never been to have you been to Madison Square Garden?
Nope. I've been in New York though. I've
Okay.
been in New York, but
Okay,
yeah,
so
I've
you've
never
had
been to
the-
Madison Square Garden.
So do you understand why like so many guys want to live there and play?
Yeah, yeah,
there?
100%.
Like, you get like the New York
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. that ruined you.
I'm just stunned. The thing is because like in hockey you travel so much.
I know.
Did you just do like all American tournaments?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, like the local Toronto ones, right? I mean, throw in Sudbury, Ottawa,
Yeah.
those ones we had done, and then it's the U.S. ones that were here. Like we did, I think we did some New York, like the Lake Placid, whatever.
That one's so good.
Traveled for lacrosse a bit, so it was like, Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia,
Syracuse?
I think Pittsburgh, Syracuse, yeah, a bunch. That's kind of like the main ones that you hit, and then obviously I've been to Florida a bunch. That was my first time ever outside of like those main places. I'm trying to think about, like I went down to visit my sisters. They went to Quinnipiac, so I went down there
nice.
and saw them a couple of times. I saw some Quinnipiac hockey games. My
Sweet.
buddy was playing for Springfield, so we saw him in Hartford playing
yeah.
against them. But like that's the extent of it.
All right, we got to get you on the road. Go buy some luggage this weekend. We're going to get you on the road. We got games tonight. We got 6 games on the board around the NHL this evening. Some of them involve places that Philly's never been.
Probably most of them.
FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. The sheet is powered by FanDuel, home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. And Utah's facing off against the Florida Panthers tonight. The big story is it's Vejmelka versus Bobrovsky, right? That's the big story in this one. No other headlines that we can think of between the Florida Panthers and Utah. Fill in the blanks. No. Brad Marchand's debut. I don't know what it's going to look like. I know what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel weird. Like to me, I mentioned earlier, one of the big jarring ones for me was watching Mike Modano in a Red Wings jersey. That one was, even though he's like a Livonia guy and like, okay, Michigan and all that, but I just never thought I would see him in anything else other than a Stars, either Minnesota or Dallas. That one was a jarring one. This is going to be a tough, I'll tell you what, the Boston Bruins are limping to the end of this season, and we never thought we would see this. We all knew it was coming one day, that Boston, like the wheels were going to, if not fall off, we're going to at least get loose, and you needed to take the buggy back to the shop, and that's where Boston's at now. But it's just weird. And right now, Boston Bruins fans, if you're listening, watching, don't know that you're going to want to watch this game. I always encourage people to watch as many games as possible. I don't know if you're a Bruins fan that this is one that you're going to watch. Because Brad Marchand's on a team that might win the Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to be a big part of it. And we get to watch his debut tonight as Utah faces off against Florida. Montreal takes on the Carolina Hurricanes at the Lenovo Center. Sam Montembeault starts for Montreal. They can't keep squandering points. And I say that about also the Islanders. And I say that about the Rangers. And I say that about Columbus. Again, just like last year in the Eastern Conference. Whoever gets this spot is going backwards into it. Just like last year. Good news for the Carolina Hurricanes. Someone that I always believe should be scoring 40 goals a year because he has the skill to do it is Andrei Svechnikov. Oh, you know what I should have asked? Damn it. You know what I should have asked Burkie when he was on? Damn.
What's that?
One of my favorite moments doing the combine when I was doing the draft with Burkie is we would do like a cattle call, and all the prospects would come through at the Key Bank, and we'd interview we're at the Canisius College rink rather, and in the dressing in the Canisius College dressing room, we'd have all the prospects sort of wheel through, and so Andrei Svechnikov, who at that time was playing with the Barrie Colts, wheels through. So this would have been the Dallas draft. So he wheels through, and we're all asking our questions, and Burkie always goes last. And I love watching Burkie interview the prospects because he goes into hardcore GM mode. It's so cool to watch. And he starts asking them questions that are intended to trip up the player. And so he's going at Svechnikov. And you're like, ooh, this sounds like an NHL, like boardroom interview, like these things that we've heard about. It's pretty cool to watch. And then he asks him, he says, how often do you work out? Svechnikov says, every day. And he says, oh, really? Where do you work out? Because the Barrie Colts, I don't know if this is still true, but the Barrie Colts are one of the only teams that don't have a gym in the rink. So he's trying to catch him up. He said, oh, I just work out at the rink. There's like an LA Fitness across the street. I'm not sure whether that's where all the guys go. But I'm like, why'd you ask him where he works out? He goes, yeah, you dummy. Barrie's one of the only teams that doesn't have a gym. I was going to see if I could trip him up and see if I can catch him in a lie. Should have asked about the Svechnikov. So I was like, Burkie, that's awesome. You're like, you got to do your homework, kid. The Vancouver Canucks, oh, man, St. Louis just putting this out of contention. The Vancouver Canucks face off against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Again, Philly, like you're probably like me. We all want Columbus to make it in. We all want this good story to end up with some playoffs here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Vancouver battling, Columbus battling the New Jersey Devils. We'll send Jake Allen to the net. The Winnipeg Jets will start Connor Hellebuck, or for you old-timers, Hellebusick. The Vegas Golden Knights facing off against the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Rangers take on the Anaheim Ducks. Jacob Trouba versus his ex-team. John Gibson gets a start there for the Quack. What time did you get in the wrapper last night? What time did you shut down?
About like 3:15 a.m. I think it was. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Shout out to producer Vic, who came on the post-game show with me and stayed on the
did?
entire post-game last night. Yep, he did. Thankfully.
Producer Vic.
I would have been able to do it, but he was like, I'm up anyways. I'll do the show with you. And he joined me for the entire thing.
What was the mood after San Jose beat Toronto, again, period?
Yeah. It was annoyance, and it was, are we surprised? And it was, they'll probably beat LA on Saturday because that's the Maple Leafs too.
Maple Leafs, yeah.
Yeah, like loss against San Jose, they'll beat LA, they'll go in on Sunday against Anaheim, and they'll have a crappy one and win by one. Like, it's just, this is what the team does.
Your boy Willie got a goal.
Basically predict the whole season.
Your boy Willie got a goal.
Oh, yeah, two, I think.
Oh, he had a pair last night?
Yeah, I believe so. He got to 42 last night on the season. Yeah. My brain at this point is just...
Okay, you've earned your pillow. So what Zach does now is he goes and he puts together all the clips we put out for social media in association with our partners at FanDuel. Go right to bed. You don't have to stay up for the Rangers and the Anaheim Ducks.
No, I want to watch it. That's the problem is, like, once I'm up. There's no napping. There's none of that. Like, I'm going. The only thing that kills me on a weekend like this, Jeff, is that the Leafs play tomorrow and then they play on Sunday. And the reason I say this kills me is because the Sunday game is the 8 p.m., And I'm complaining and nobody cares. Like, it really is not that big of a deal. But it's like the Sunday game at 8 p.m. is just like, it's that extra hour later that it just doesn't need to be. I'm like,
you know what hockey
just get
fans
me back
love?
On track.
Hockey fans love hearing people in media complain about having to stay up to watch games.
Yeah, I know.
Do their job and then talk about hockey.
Yeah.
And they love hearing travel.
I get it.
They love hearing travel complaints too. People love that.
I know. I'm not trying to complain. I'm just explaining my body clock, how this
I understand you're a delicate flower. I know that. A very poorly traveled delicate flower, as we found out on today's show. All right. Enjoy the hockey tonight. Enjoy the hockey on the weekend. Zach, get some sleep. Your mother and I are very concerned about you. Very, very concerned about your recuperation. All right. Thanks so much to everyone in the chat today. As always, thanks to everybody watching live on YouTube. Thanks to Brian Burke for stopping by, as he does every Friday. And isn't that cool that Brian Burke's in Victoria right now? Did I mention it's one of my favorite places in Canada? In Victoria right now, lovely Victoria, BC, on the island. Part of the 100-year anniversary of Victoria winning the Stanley Cup. So a lot of conversation about the All Pacific League and the Patrick family. And again, not jealous at all. And I really do still. Like, I haven't forgotten what we talked about off the beginning of the show. Players, rip officials all you want, as long as we let officials talk after the game and ask what they thought about some of the performances that they just saw. I don't know about you, but I would love it. Have a great weekend. We're back on Monday. Always remind you, Morning Cup of Hockey, Monday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern. Johnny Lazarus, Colby Cohen, Daily Faceoff live at noon, and then our little act here at 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up.